Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. So before we get going on the spraying, I wanted to share with you where things sit on the resource exchange from all the other crops we've been selling. So as you can see here, we're getting down to the tail end. You know, we've still got not quite 2 weeks that these trades can continue to run, but some products have fully sold out finally. So the root crops are gone. You know, we've got 6 liters of hemp left to sell. You know, a good amount of oats, you know, at least over 1,000 liters there, and you know, less than 1,000, less than 500 liters of barley. So, you know, things have progressed pretty well, and basically, so like 2 weeks in from when we listed these, we've got all our crops sold off. So just gives you an idea again, if you're curious how resource exchange works and how things go forward. That's where we're at. So let's head on over and start working on the spraying. So we're back here, midsummer, year 78, and we're at the point now where we're going to be able to spray. Our cotton has grown up to the first stage, and we're going to go ahead and get some herbicide down so that we get rid of the weeds that are already obviously sprouting up after things have started to grow after we've planted. So for those of you who may have skipped the planting episode, just a quick update. I'm scaling down substantially on the farm operations right now, just because of demands of real life. So, you know, keeping things moving, but just doing so at a slower pace, or a, you know, smaller pace. It's not really slower. The speed is obviously the same. Nothing has started to move at different speeds just because I'm busier. And things are, you know, pretty moist, as I think is kind of common this early in the summer. Just out of curiosity, I did take measures in the field, and so these fields here are at 35%, which is what I think anything that was ready to harvest or ready to go would be. But obviously we're not at the harvest stage at this point, but and growing crops, the cotton was 85%, so I did have a situation at one point in the past where I did measure a field that was growing and suddenly realized, wow, it may have a different moisture level when it's growing than it does other times, and I certainly, I think, have verified that with the measurement today. Alright, so the mower is kind of staged there. It was there yesterday when I came through here, but I think at this point he is getting to the point where it looks like, at least to me, to the uneducated me on grass, since I don't do substantial amounts of grass work myself, it looks like it's ready to go, but that may or may not be the case. So the other thing that I did say I would do, at least for a little while, is kind of turn these videos, these recent videos, given that I'm doing smaller amounts of work, leave them as kind of regular Let's Plays where I just have the video and don't necessarily cut around or do things to, you know, shorten the actual video that I recorded. So that is also what I'm doing, but obviously that at times means that there will be points where I'll be maybe not chatting as much. I'll certainly try not to leave minutes without talking. And also, it comes to the reality that, you know, if I have to cough or sneeze or clear my throat or something, there may be times where I'll have to mute, and if somehow I don't, then obviously there might be a cut there, but Yeah, so there's various possibilities as things are happening of what may or may not occur as far as why I'm quiet. So yeah, I do like, I don't know that I've been able to fully determine, like herbicide is obviously the tank way at the end, but it let me fill here. So that was a feature, I guess I'll call it, because I think it really is. That is helpful. The one place I will jump cut, however, is if I'm going to edit my spreadsheet with data. So once again, I'm going to do 98, 97 is where I've planted the cotton. And when I'm done with 98 here, I will go ahead and, as I said, kind of have a cut there where I've gone away and updated my spreadsheet with how much herbicide I used. But, no, I'm way off. Not good at estimating. Well, it also means I've got to play with my positioning a bit here. But that's okay, because it's really only like three passes to do the field here, so it's pretty quick to do the herbicide up here. And so we'll get going with that. I'm hitting the area. Let me just turn it on and go, and as you can see, as we said, there's weeds sprouting up already. So definitely, a need to spray. I mean, we obviously know there's a need to spray. That's just kind of how it works. And there is a slight difference in color, and it's always great with the cotton to do it at this stage because you can still use some visual cues on the field to go ahead and make sure that you're getting things covered. I'm going to go ahead and still get my GPS set up so that when I get on the other field, and I may use it over here, but probably not, because as I said, it's pretty simple, and that third pass in the center usually has a bit of leeway in not being able to be handled appropriately. So let's see, how do we want to go around this tree here? Reverse, turn off the herbicide sprayer so I'm not wasting it in the grass. And then I go up normally and do the top row. So I'll do that. And the trick is, and I think I messed up, yep, because I'm going to get hooked on the tree, is trying to position things in a way that I can maneuver, and unfortunately it's not looking great here, but I'll keep trying. Actually, I'm not going to play the game. I'm going to fold things up, because otherwise, oh boy, this might, okay, there we go. Come on, what am I doing here? So, it's always the problem with the sprayer, is it's always a bit difficult in a area where I've got things so close to the margins of the field to, get myself positioned in a way that I'm not getting caught on trees and so forth. So I'm going to start to unfold, because I think this will kind of be about where I want to be. Hopefully I'm not misjudging too much. Yeah, this looks promising. So make sure I'm set to go forward. Need to back up a tiny bit more, because I don't really quite have the sprayer off the edge. And then we'll get moving here once I'm off the edge of the field enough. And you can start to see the difference in the couple shaded areas. Where, as I said, that center row is very tiny and not substantial in width. And so even if I'm not real great at driving straight here, if I have to make some corrections, it ends up being not too difficult of a process to run things appropriately to get the field covered with herbicide. And this has kind of become the standard process for years now, since precision farming has been introduced into our servers. Okay, we'll turn off. Just give ourselves enough room here. Try to line up in the center, and then turn it on and finish off 98. And then again, I'll get myself updated with how much herbicide I used so that my costs per field and per acre are appropriate. Looks like we've got a small patch of weeds here that grew up. So it's one of those things, and if you're unfamiliar with weeds in Farming Simulator, basically they're quote-unquote planted at harvest and at seeding or planting time. So there's 2 times in the cycle for a crop where weeds will start to generate, but really the only time they matter to yield is you have to have them gone before you harvest. And through various trial and error, I've kind of determined that right after this first growth stage is the best time to spray. You can see things. They do stay dead at that point, so it is effective. So the problem has been that I had tried at points to do it after I harvest, but then because they're planted again at the time of planting, I would basically have to spray twice, and there was really no benefit of spraying early after harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and top this up, because then it's just easier to do the calculations, and it's a quicker process. And right now I'm right here, so let's get ourselves full in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and record my data, so I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so I'm back, just topping up as I said, and then I'll head over, run my headland at the top end here, and that will at least give me some opportunity to turn when I get up at this end of the field. And then we'll make our GPS lines visible, and we'll start positioning and going up and down the field. Alright, so it's again kind of a visual estimation. I think I'm probably significantly further over than I need to be, but let me change the angle a bit, see if I can take... Now I'm probably too far. Yep, of course. So that's always the fun. You're trying to get a little bit more, and then you realize it's just not worth it. Alright, so now try to back up semi-straight here so that I continue to overlap on the field as appropriate. This one's always a lot of fun with the way the hitch swivels. So once again, let's turn ourselves on, turn toward the edge of the field just to make sure we're not pulling away, and get this pass across sprayed. And then I'll probably start from that edge just because I'm there. I don't know, it might not work out well at the silo area, but we get the work done is kind of what always happens. So it's pretty straightforward, trying to get everything covered so that as this crop goes, we don't get the 15% hit that we normally would if there are weeds in any area. So looks like the headlands stayed pretty clear of things, but that doesn't mean it would before harvest. Usually if you let a field go, which we used to do before precision farming, because we still got a pretty good yield and things weren't quite as defined in the usage. So yeah, things weren't quite as defined in the usage on the field as far as the yield hit. So let me turn on my lines, get myself aligned here. So we'll move over the line using the page up, page alt, page up, alt, page up, page down. Sorry, I'm trying to speak quickly and therefore skipping words, which is not a good thing if someone's trying to understand what I'm doing here on the keyboard. We'll turn ourselves on, move on down the field. So the good news on the FS22 front is we seem to be kind of maybe getting to that tipping point where a good amount of useful and interesting mods are coming across. So there's a enhanced vehicle that has appeared in the last week that starts to give us all the information, well, actually does give us all the information we have here, and then some. They've actually made it better in FS22, but the other thing that I learned, which I didn't know until they wrote about it in the write-up for that, is we've been able to have the what they call the shuttle shift, which is kind of this arrow next to the speedometer. I was trying to point to it, sorry, but realized I can't get to an arrow here because we don't have something like auto drive that lets us avoid moving the camera and just puts the mouse pointer back on screen. But anyway, that forward and backward arrow that is there is a feature that's built into FS22's interface by turning on a setting, which I didn't realize, and it took me a while to actually play around and figure out how to make it work. So that capability's always been there, so that was one of the things I said I really do enjoy about EV. I mean, certainly the measures are interesting, and then of course the differential lock was the other piece, which is there and able to be used. Sorry, just want to make sure I don't run myself off the edge of the field. And this is always the challenge here with this setup, is with the telephone poles, and then across the street the light poles come into play just because of the working width of this implement. Sometimes I have to fold the sprayer, but I think I get the one shot here that I don't have to worry about it. But that has come out. And it also has some added features where in essence it's a little bit of something like this, like GPS, but with some headland capability. So you're likely going to be seeing a video shortly on the channel delving into that mod a bit more, because there's definitely some complexity to it. And so I'm going to kind of give it the same treatment as far as going into the mod itself in detail that I've really only done with one mod so far, which was the setting the gameplay survival, so that you basically are forced to do things in survival mode that I did early on. You know, so there's things like that that are starting to appear, and we've been able to see light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, with regard to mods. We're still waiting for some kind of maps that are of interest to us, but it looks like maybe we're getting to the point where certainly the key things right now, GPS, EV, and I'll be curious if they obviously bring EV back into FSN, what they might do, because they might modify it to remove the headland automation, because basically you're able to let the tractor kind of turn itself at the end, and it's got some added complexity to it that's actually quite interesting. And it's certainly not perfect. It's not as good as courseplay in positioning itself and so forth, so you do have areas of the field that are missed that ultimately you need to touch up, but it's still certainly an aid. And given the stance of FSN kind of being no automation aids that kind of automate the work in any way, they may have to do something with that mod, or that part of the mod, to disable it, because otherwise there's, you know, not a way to say that people aren't using it. And again, maybe because it's kind of you know, a sloppy working of the fields, they'd say, yeah, we'll go ahead, because people are still going to have to like touch up the ends of their fields if they use it and so forth. Because really all it allows you to do is, instead of playing around at the turnaround and then trying to position yourself, it does that, but the creators readily admit that it's just as rough of a turn as you could make. Like it doesn't look for obstructions, so like if I tried to use it with something like this, with the poles at the end of the field, like I'd be getting hung up all the time. So I'd almost have to turn it off and manually turn my vehicle anyway. So because of all that, they may say, yeah, it's automated, but it's not enough automated that we're going to spend our time to get rid of that, because I'm pretty sure they're still going to want to introduce the differential lock and so forth, and that's the mod we have here. And I would imagine they run back to the similar mods if they can, because they already kind of have a history of working within FSN, and they're not trying to figure out how to use something else that might have that feature in an isolated way or something. And obviously having the information about fuel and damage is also nice and helpful. But so yeah, so you know, you'll likely start seeing more things on the channel about mods, as we seem to be having things showing up in various places and various sites on the internet, and that's a good thing. I almost hit my key to turn off the sprayer. I'm kind of getting trigger happy here. Alright, so in this case, as you can see, obviously I can't drive through the poles, so I'm going to have to head up here and then kind of move over. But this is where, again, it gets a little bit interesting, because if I'm not careful and I swing, I swing too far and those light poles again come into play. Plus, we're going to overhang the field, and so I've got to be careful with how that works too. So, just complexities in trying to get something done on a field with something that's this wide. So while it does move the work along pretty quickly, because I think we have, you know, maybe 6 passes to cover the whole field, it does not come without a cost in just the mechanics of driving it appropriately and getting things done. So obviously I've got to move over here so that I don't hit the silos and the root cellar. And then the bigger problem is the end of the field, but I think I'm going to go ahead and turn and just spray that headland. Usually I don't, I just play with it, but invariably I end up getting hung up, so I'm going to try it this way first, or this way this time, and you know, that will give me, more importantly, a bigger point where I don't have to sit here and try to reverse to get this corner of the field like I did when I don't do this spraying. And again, as you can see, there's just, you know, one other pass that I'll be doing coming back that is going to give me that. And I can turn this off actually because I won't be moving over there, I don't think. But now once again it's trying to see if I can get the result I need. And I think I'm good. Yep. I just wasn't sure if I would get the rotation around the axis there in a way that let me avoid missing a piece of the field. But I was able to do that. I believe I can get this whole field done without refilling the sprayer, but we're obviously already down to 64%, so we'll see where we're at. But you know, we also have segments of the field that we, you know, is gone because of the house and the little bit of the yard and so forth. So, and this really probably does get us to the halfway point of the field once I'm up here, and we're not going to be at 50%, so should be pretty good. But I haven't done this in a little while. Obviously last year for a lot of this we had the contractor that was helping us briefly, and I didn't have to spray, so it's been probably, you know, going on a month or more since I've had to do this field with herbicide before. And frankly, I don't know, even if I had just done it, say 12 days ago, that I'd remember anyway. So, because it's not like it impacts anything, because if I run out I have to refill it. I mean, there's nothing I can do to not run out. So just go ahead and get that taken care of. And I think once I do this, go in front of the house, get that little segment of the field done there, then it's just hopefully running a few passes to finish up, and we'll be good. It's just a matter of, is there a sliver on the far side of the field? And again, that's something I don't remember, and that could potentially, you know, obviously make it a little more likely of getting close to running out of herbicide, because if I've got something that's just a few meters wide, I can't just spray out of one part of the sprayer, so I'm reapplying on parts of the field that are already applied, and so the consumption of the herbicide is obviously the same. And yeah, it looks like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to clear the trees on the other side, but I won't have anything left, but I may have to manually drive that last segment. So Let's play around here, and then we're going to have to play around almost immediately again. Maybe I went too far. Goodness, this is always... It's like you want to do it, but then you don't. I don't know. I know what I mean in my head. It's not coming out in my words, so I apologize if you're like totally confused what I mean. Oh boy. It's like my brain doesn't work when I'm going in this direction or something. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to take advantage of the fact that at this point I don't need the entire field. So, son of a bitch. So I'm going to lock in, and I'm going to start spraying, and I'm going to just let it wiggle around because I can hang off the end and I don't have to position as precisely. So I'm going to take advantage of that, but here obviously I'm going to have the poles at the end of the road, or the end of the field, I guess, that I've got to deal with, and then hopefully it'll be a little cleaner on the last couple passes. So, see if we can do this without folding the implement, but that doesn't always happen, because once again I have to turn pretty early here to not get hooked on the pole, and then I have to back up. But I kind of have a little bit of the same thing where I've got some grace on the left side where I can have a bit of tolerance of things hanging off if I'm not positioned perfectly, and then just let the thing kind of angle around and fix itself. So there we go. So even though that one tip swings forward a bit, I can go ahead and do that, and yeah, this will line me up. I won't have to move going this way up the field. So I'm always amazed how much that dips down, where that sprayer basically touches the ground there for whatever reason. So there's more of a hill there than you would think, because it just doesn't run as smoothly. But yeah, here we'll be spraying. I wonder what, in real farming, what they do for something like this. Like, would they do what I'm doing? Because in essence, the spray's going into my pit. So, I mean, obviously the crops that we're harvesting are going to have herbicide in theory on them, but I don't know that that's quite the same of just spraying raw herbicide into our crop silo intake and then, you know, having it linger there for however long that might be. So I wonder if farmers would avoid doing that because it just creates problems and kind of creates an overabundance of pesticide in the crop, at least for a period, because I'm sure, just like anything, I mean, as the crop falls in and rotates and touches that herbicide that's sprayed on the sides of the pit, I assume eventually it wears off and it's gone. It's not like it is infinitely there. But, you know, some of that stuff that I don't know how that works in the real world. And I'm not sure that's something that's even studied. It might be one of those things that farmers are just like, yeah, like, why would I do that anyway? I'll just, you know, move the equipment over a bit or something. But in this case, where I'm locked to a GPS line, you would think there's a similarity between what I'm doing here in the simulation and in the real world of, you know, rather than deviate from the line, if I can just go down the line appropriate, you know, in the same manner. Alright, I guess we'll give it a shot. We might be able to, maybe not. We'll see. I think we're going to actually get hung up on the trees here. It's really, really close. But I think like those big trees, I think I might miss this thin one So maybe it's just this one stand, but I don't know if it... Oh, no, it's even going to catch us here, so... Let me... Sorry, I had the cruise control on longer than I intended. So let me come back and clean things up, and once again I didn't learn what is happening. It just seems like that sprayer arm, it was almost acting like it was attached to the tree. I don't understand why. I just, like I said, so this is the stuff I hate with the sprayer, where I've in essence created so much difficulty. I'm just going to start folding it, and then it will break free at some point. There we go. So it's those things that, you know, you make one little mistake with the sprayer, and then that turned into what? A minute of fumbling around trying to break free. It's one of those very frustrating implements to work with. And once again, I'm sure in reality it's the same thing. Like, you just have to learn what you can and can't do. I'm headed too much of an angle. Hopefully I'm not going off the edge of the field there. So this is the challenge, where I need to kind of go straight. I mean, I could re-snap my track and align it more with the edge of the field just to make sure, but usually it's just not worth the effort, because as long as I'm going relatively straight, I still have the kind of visual perspective where I can tell, am I moving closer to the line, away, you know, further from the white line in the center. And as I said, you know, for whatever reason, the dots that they use here on FS19, I just find them more pleasing to look at and work with than the actual solid lines that exist in the FS22 version of this mod. So I'm just, you know, I'm sure I'll get used to it, but I think nostalgic-wise, this will be one of those where I'm like, oh, I just love how this is implemented, and maybe someone someday, you know, will go ahead, and including maybe the original modder, will give you that option to use the legacy, you know, graphics for the line. I'm drifting away further than I thought, even though I didn't appear to be moving away. That's interesting. But it's such a far working with. It's like, that's the piece, is like I don't have that much room between the trees at the edge. And certainly, like, these pine trees here, I think hang out further. So I need to be careful that I get the field, but don't get hung up. Good news is I'm done. I can fold this up. Didn't get anywhere near using all the herbicide up. So I'll go ahead while I'm up here and I'll top off, so that when I'm down there I don't have a situation where I can't just start spraying a field before I need to refill. I mean, I do have the tanker down there, but you know, why utilize something that I have to refill if I'm here and it just literally takes me a few seconds. I tried to do it, but I think I was moving at a few miles an hour, and at that point, because you're moving, it basically stops filling immediately. So now I'm trying to remember. I think it was 2353 is what I had. So that's the one danger, is that I didn't jump out and record my data, because initially I was like, well, I'll just worry about it when I park, and I'll have the information then. But deciding to fill up obviously removes that. But I can always go back and look at my video if I'm wrong, just to double check. So it's the benefit of having the recording too, is if I somehow forget to write something down, as long as I look at it before I delete the files, I've got the information I need. So hopefully you've enjoyed the ride along on the herbicide, and you know, it's as always a nice morning. It's always fun when it's kind of sunny, and the longer days this time of year where when I'm on this early, I have daylight, and it's, you know, pretty solid daylight, like the sun's been up for a while daylight, where it's bright, and yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you can like see the sun as an orb, but I don't know if now it's like above us, so it might really have been up for a while. But I can't see it right now, so I don't know exactly how high it is. But, you know, at this time in the fall, and certainly in the winter, I think it's still dark, or, you know, almost like twilight. It's another one. I'm not sure if I'm using things correctly. In the morning, is it still called twilight? I know twilight's, you know, when it's setting, and at night, but I don't know that I know the word, if it exists, for the time around sunrise where the light's just starting to come up. Is it twilight on both ends? Don't know. So it's always the fun that I have playing this game, is I've got all this time to just have random thoughts pop into my head, and sometimes I care enough about them at some point to go research it. I don't know that this will be one of those, because I can kind of call it what I want, and I guess in the comments you guys can correct me and say, hey dummy, it's not twilight, stop calling it that, it's this. But for now, I guess I'll say the early morning twilight, and I think I've heard that phrase, so you know, it might be twilight. Invariably, I mean, I've been on this farm for like over 6 months of my life now. You'd think I would understand when I'm getting out and then wanting to walk over to the pressure washer how to not hit the E key again and just get right back in the tractor. But I still do it all the time. It's ridiculous. And I do always find this interesting, where in essence the tractor doesn't appear to have picked up any dirt. The sprayer does, but at least with this implement, the tractor doesn't seem to get any dirt. Right, so we're topped off, repaired. Now we can swing around, and because we don't have any crops in the field that we need to worry about, and frankly, we've got thin tires, so it wouldn't damage the crops anyway, but I'm always careful not to kind of try to get myself in the mindset of, oh shoot, well, this will be harder than it needs to be because I thought somehow I needed to be on this side of the tractor, and in fact I need to be on the other side. So let's see how much time I can waste and take to finally get this positioned where it needs to be, because I pulled too far forward. I might surprise myself. I'm actually doing way better than I would have expected. Wow. Of course, I'll probably mess it up at the end and have to take 5 minutes to straighten things out, but I'm going to try to be optimistic and say, no, I'm going to figure this out. Yeah, I might. Wow. It's probably the best parking job I've ever done of this thing. I don't know that I've ever done it in one pass. So, I'll take it. So anyway, that's the work we need to do for now on the farm. Once again, keeping things pretty short, so, you know, well under an hour here in the work I needed to do, and it's intentional because, you know, I've got just a little bit of time before it's time for work, so, you know, and I might only have a little bit of time in the evening today to do anything, so in any event, that is why we are just doing a subset of fields on Misty Hills into the foreseeable future. So I will see you next time.